Okay, thanks to everybody who's watching this week. My guest this week is Jen Montone, principal horn of the Philadelphia Orchestra. And before we get started with the interview, I wanted to thank my sponsors, Euclid IQ, which is the world's leading company in audio and video compression, and also Dylan Music. And if you go to dylanmusic.com and if you use the code Doolan5, you get a 5% discount on all of your brass needs. So Jen, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. It's lovely to see you.
It's great to see you too. Thank you so much. And I love Dylan Music. They're awesome.
Dylan is the best. Dylan is the best. And I'm going to make sure I have this like that. So I hope that that works. So anyway, and before we start these questions, it's funny. I was talking to Jim Pandolfi today, whose uncle was your predecessor in St. Louis, and he said, "Oh yeah, Jen Montone." He said she sat right in front of me a whole ring cycle, and he said, "I thought she's a winner."
Oh,
so that was Jim's comment,
Oh, well, that guy, he is a monster player. Oh my gosh, he's so inspiring. That whole family is talented. It's crazy.
They are, and that was the cleanest part of our conversation as far as language goes, as you might expect. So.
He always seemed like a really great guy.
He is a super guy, and he was
That's
like,
awesome.
"Oh, that's so." But yeah, I want to hear about your beginnings in music. Like, when did you start playing?
I started when I was 10, so just fifth grade band, like a lot of us. And yeah, I started taking some lessons with a high school kid, and it was great. She would put like little stickers on my book, and just all that cute stuff. And then actually studied with someone who was in a service band in middle school. And then in high school, I lucked out. I got into this amazing program that the National Symphony has, which is called the Youth Fellowship Program. And you get to have lessons with somebody in the orchestra. And so I got to have lessons for free with Ted Thayer, who, if any of you don't know him, he's just like one of the most sublime, incredible, exquisite musicians on the horn. And yeah, just a wonderful teacher. So I studied with him and listened to the National Symphony a lot, which actually was really big for me in terms of me wanting to be a musician, just kind of seeing what the life is like if you can get into that world. It's just, it's really inspiring as a young person. So that was really, really special. And then I also idolized Sylvia Alamina, actually still do. And she's amazing. And and I was in her Brass of Peace ensemble, which is a really great brass group that she conducts in the DC area. So yeah, I was really in a very lucky place to grow up because there's just so much going on. There's great youth symphony down there as well. And yeah, it's a real flourishing place for our field.
Yeah, there's been a few people I've had on that were in Brass of Peace,
Yeah.
and then it's funny when you mentioned Thayer. I mean, I'm a trumpet player, so I had to do a little research, but I saw he studied with James Stagliano.
Yeah.
Right?
It's really cool. Yeah. So it's like he studied with Stagliano and Sylvia studied with Harry, who was the second horn there, and then they got principal and second in national. Harry Shapiro, sorry.
Right.
But yeah, it's amazing like that. But yeah, it's really good because, and actually, Nikki Cash is also from that area, who was associate principal in San Fran and is amazing as
Yeah.
well. So yeah, it's a really good place to grow up. I feel very lucky about that.
Oh, and I think I have an early visitor.
Oh, nice.
We'll see if they come in. And when it was, you know who that is. So
Wait.
what I was thinking about that
Oh,
is that a couple weeks ago I had Vladimir Dokshitzer talking about his brother Timofey on,
oh wow.
and Staliano is and Louis Davidson are the two people that made the record that Dokshitzer distributed everywhere.
Oh,
So
that's amazing.
and so there are some records that have a Bloomington address for Louis Davidson, and I have one with the Boston address for Staliano's house on it.
Oh, that's so
So
cool. Yeah.
it's always such a small thing. Um, and
Small world.
yeah, so you were hearing the National Symphony a lot. Were there other horn players you were listening to at that
Oh
time? Was it?
yeah. I mean, well, it's funny to see Mr. Curnow here. Because yeah, when I was in high school, I went to Tanglewood, and the first summer I went for the Empire Brass Quintet seminar, which was incredible because I got to work with Eric Rusk and hear the quintet all the time and get coached by them. And that kind of, I never really done a whole lot of that kind of repertoire. So it got me so entrenched in just loving the artistry of what a brass quintet can be and kind of what chamber music can be like in our field. And it was pretty remarkable experience getting to hear them all the time. And yeah, I've always sort of since then just loved getting to do chamber music as part of stuff. But I idolized them quite strongly, and then just started listening to all the major orchestras, and of course fell in love with Dale Clevenger and the Philly sound, and Berlin
Yeah.
and Vienna and like the Wiener horn thing. And there's so much great music making out there. Like I love to tell my students to listen to all the really old recordings because there's just our legacy is so deep, and there were so many people that they're incredible, like LPs and old CDs of remarkable recordings that are maybe just like you've got to search just a little bit deeper than the first thing that comes up on YouTube, but it's so worth it because it
Yeah.
just expands your mind so much. So
And they sound better because they're not.
I mean,
There is something to that too. Were there?
yeah.
I mean, were there any recordings in particular that you maybe you even come back to from your beginnings? I mean, because I know that Jeff's on and listening. That Empire Brass recording of the Class Brass and then the West Side Story stuff. I mean, I'd still listen to those things today.
Yeah, I fell in love with their romantic brass CD. Just all of those. Just I was in awe of like the blend and the interweaving of the voices. That's a very musically intelligent brass quintet. And yeah, it's pretty remarkable. Yeah, orchestrally, I fell in love with like some of the old Strauss tone poems of like Vienna. There's some really old recordings with Kleiber, actually. No, not with Kleiber. It's with Carillon, rather. And
Hmm.
pretty remarkable, sort of really passionate, like post World War II, just like they're just playing like their lives depended on it, and just all hearts out on the table. And it's mind blowing. And then a lot of like when I got to Juilliard, Julie got me into sort of appreciating opera. Julie Landsman, my teacher, who obviously had on recently. But yeah, so I got into like listening to, she would have me listen to like Mozart arias for my Mozart horn pieces, and things like Renee Fleming, like the Strauss Heroines CD, which is really amazing. But yeah, just kind of how the vocal world can kind of inspire how you play. But
Yeah.
yeah, and then when I started taking auditions, I actually started trying to go kind of creative with like who I listened to. So I started listening to a whole bunch of different, I would find a different orchestra for each excerpt, so that I was kind of trying to imitate a different player for each one to try to get there to be more contrast, like between my excerpts. And it makes it really fun because then you're kind of it's right when you're young, like you're not sure if you feel like you deserve to have ownership over your own interpretation. And so it's like it's helpful for sort of making you feel confident because you're like, well, that person's got a job. Somebody liked how they did it. Like, hell, they're on recording. So like, I'll try to sound like them and, can't be going too far wrong, So it helps
Yeah.
you feel a little bit more confident about what you're choosing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a really cool idea. I've never heard anybody say that because usually it becomes I'm going to copy this because that's my guy
Right.
and this is my
Yeah.
father. And it's easy to do
Yeah. I think somebody else suggested that to me. I don't think I came up with it, but it's definitely a much more fun way to look at auditions.
Yeah.
So
Well, you have to
yeah.
try and find fun ways to look at auditions, I guess, right? Because
Oh yeah, totally.
they're
It's
always
like a
enjoyable.
game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So what were those early lessons like with Thayer and Sylvia? What kind of things did they have you working on?
Hmm. Well, I think one of the things that I'm the most grateful to the two of them about is just, I think they always put up high priority on like building true little musicians. Like even before you can play the horn, like we all have this musical soul and it can be trained in kind of interpretive ways and just instinctive
Hmm.
playing. And I think that's really amazing because I think so as I was like developing on the instrument, they were inspiring all of us to like it's like shape to here, find where you want your phrase point to be. You can actually like you can tongue that softer, you can be smoother, you can make that crescendo, but you can do that diminuendo. How about that appoggiatura? How about that release? It's like how about that M ending? Like all of these little nuancy things that like we often wait until our students are better at playing before we kind of make them do that. But
Hmm.
I really respected the fact that they kind of taught me that those things existed and taught me to value them. It's a pretty special way to approach like
Yeah.
musicianship, and especially on a brass instrument it's like it's important because not everybody kind of thinks that way, so it helps you with your refinement. And for a horn player then you're playing under woodwinds and you actually like you're listening for all that stuff and it's really good. But yeah, and then things like Sylvia would talk about like a like a golden strand of sound coming out of like your forehead and just floating into the air, like kind of effortless production of vocal sound.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
also just things like blend and balance and all that. I mean, basically just all the seeds that then grow into our professional, like what we're always striving for in our professional lives.
Hmm.
I feel like I was lucky that they were planted quite young, so like I was able to sort of integrate them into as I was getting better on the instrument.
Right.
So that's something we can do actually during this pandemic is kind of in addition to kind of working on like the nuts and bolts of our playing, we can also try to see our musical development as sort of a separate and very worthwhile kind of thing to go to. And that
Yeah.
does it feeds the soul in a different way, and it's way less like brutal than like if we're only comparing our if we're kind of analyzing our development as like just a technical thing, then you get very agitated at yourself for like feeling unmotivated or the progress feels slow or whatever. But when you're thinking about it in terms of musical development, it's a lot more gratifying. So when I
Yeah.
get lack of motivation in myself or my students, I try to go that direction because it's a little happier.
Yeah. Because yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And then that's amazing to do that early because it also keeps you out of your head about thinking about physical things as you're developing, especially, right? Which is really unusual.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. What kind of materials did they have you working on back then? Were you in like a singer phase?
Huh.
Were you working on that kind of stuff, or
Yep, I think so. I know there was a basics book by a guy named Teuber, like Teuber. I remember doing a lot of stuff out of that. I do remember Singer. I think there was some Ward O'Fern in my training as well, and a lot of like Maxime Alphonse, which is so nice for horn because it's got nice little melodies and things. But yeah, I think and a lot of just the basic horn rep that you learn in high school and stuff. A lot of the solo pieces that are so lovely.
yeah? And then talk a little bit about your development, and then when you went to study with Julie at Juilliard, like what was that shift like when you went, okay, this is different, you
Oh,
know?
yeah. Oh, well, gosh. I mean, I would say like in general, my my technical foundation, it's always been harder for me to, I guess, keep track of my technical stuff when I practice and when I, kind of when I rehearse and perform and things. And so I think I was in need of a system like the Caruso method, and just sort of the very zen and calm and focused kind of approach that Julie brings into her teaching. I think it was like just absolutely exactly what I needed. And I like, again, I feel like it was super fortunate that I ended up getting to study with her, because it's like, I don't know, recently I had this back injury, and I was thinking about how like a foundation of technical, sort of something you can rely upon. It's kind of like having like, a big, those big boulders underneath your beach house. Like you just rely on them to keep you stable when things are hard, when you get nervous, when you feel weak, when you just, like anytime there's anything wrong, it's like the thing you come back to. So I feel like she was really great about just being like, okay, you've got a lot of good stuff going on. I can really help you make this more consistent. And a lot of it was kind of mental training and how to calm my very wild and loud and talkative mind into like some kind of single-minded focus that would actually be helpful and not super distracting. And then also like things like just thinking about air and time. It's like, keep it simple, keep it just like chill and calm and focused, and just like training basically your mind and your body to work together.
Yeah.
There was this really great thing that she talks about if you are one third thinking, one third listening, and one third feeling, then your everything is in kind of a perfect balance. And I find that a lot. Like if something's not going well, it's often for me because I'm thinking too much, but I lose track of either the listening or the feeling or both. But we all have kind of a different construct. But I always find it helpful to like sort of circle back to that type of approach, because yeah, basically if you're using all of yourself, it tends to work a lot better. And also if I feel like I've got the foundation of just air, a good breath, good support, smooth air, and then time to kind of stabilize things and align things with, it's like you kind of, then you have the space to make beautiful artistry on top of that, and it's really like a very reassuring feeling.
That
So
seems like such a more honest way of dividing the pie, because so often we
yeah,
hear, "Oh, just ignore the feel." Well, who can do that? I mean, it's a
right.
sensory. It is a component, and it's almost like if you allow that to happen, right, then it makes the other things in balance more. Um,
Yeah, and you can choose what feel to be going with. Like instead of like feeling the nervousness, you can feel the air. You can feel, like the breath coming into your, it's like expanding your stomach. You can feel it coming out of your mouth. You can feel the tongue. You can feel the emotion of the music. Like you can feel a lot of different ways. So yeah, I generally find that when I try to resist whatever it is that's naturally occurring, it's much less helpful than when I try to sort of train it to something that is actually productive. I find that with energy too, because like a lot of times I'll be like, dude, calm down. And I'm like, I can't calm down. Can't calm down now, especially not with you yelling at me to calm down. So then I'm like, okay, let's be excited. Let's be excited towards this. You're gonna go to there, and then you're gonna slam through the top, and you're gonna take a really big breath, and then you're gonna like fly over the top. It's like you can kind of just roll with whatever, and
yeah,
it's a lot more fun than yelling at yourself.
telling yourself what you should be thinking, right? Exactly.
Right, yeah, it's like my brain does not listen to me ever.
What were the things in your playing that came to you naturally, and what were the things that you felt like? I mean, I want to come back to the Caruso in a minute because I have a lot of questions about that. But what were the things that came naturally to you in your playing, and what were the things that you had to work a little bit harder at?
Oh, I mean, in general, like passion and emotion tends to come to me quite naturally. So I think I love like the sculpting aspect of things, and I love the just like wailing, and just like going for stuff. So it basically like for me, I needed to, and I still need to, and I always need to kind of babysit these aspects. I have to keep control over my like well, I just have to be able to keep controlling things, basically, like evenness of sound throughout the registers, things like clarity of tongue in all the registers, in all the dynamics, kind of like just weeding your garden. I have to always go back and, every couple months I'll start noticing it in my playing if I've forgotten to kind of keep up on my basics in a particular way. So I just try to be very aware of that. Things like, when you go excitedly for something that's high and loud and exhilarating, like you're going to tend to go sharp if you don't keep your pitch centered and keep your sound sort of sustained, and, just kind of all those things. And again, it's like the awareness in the moment when we're playing, and the awareness over time of like, oh, this is something that often flies out my window. So, I'll take this weekend where I don't have any work and I'll just go back and I'll clean it up because it needs it. It's like, okay. So I'm trying to kind of live my career that way where I'm, sort of not not yelling at myself, but kind of just keeping track of things so that I can keep growing. Like we all want to keep the upward swing of things. So
Are there when you mentioned articulations or some of these things like this? Are there things that you wind up going back to that can always fix those things or straighten them out? Like
yeah.
there's certain exercises. What would those things be?
Yeah, I think we all probably have a lot of those that we feel like we learned in school that are helpful. I mean, Coprash is really great for tonguing. I love doing arpeggios where I'll do things or scales like slurred and then legato tongued and then accent tongued, things like that. Basically, just all the basics of how we built our technique. If we circle back to them and kind of keep them clean and make sure that we're always improving on them, I think that's kind of important thing. I think a lot of times with basics, like sometimes when we do our warm-ups like in a big long chunk in the beginning of the day, like for me a lot of times I'm breathing really poorly and I'm not like, my body doesn't feel very stretched out. I get kind of tight when I sleep, and so it takes like several hours and like a meal and some drinking of some water and some iced tea and just kind of like being out in the world and walking around, and just kind of, it takes me a little while to feel like I'm breathing well and blowing well. So a lot of times I'll do it an easier warm up that kind of is just kind of getting me going. And also I'll do some stretching and some yoga and breathing exercises. There's like the breathing gym is a really good resource. And just like some really basic yoga exercises and breathing. And then later in the day when I'm a little bit more mentally focused and also, like producing sound in a healthier way, I'll do a lot of the foundation stuff then. And I try to break it up into a couple different groupings so that, again, so your mind doesn't sort of fuzz out. Because a lot of times if you're doing your heavy lifting or your foundational things when you're a little spacey, then you're really likely to be sealing in actual bad habits that are not healthy at all, as opposed to like what you want it to be. So often I find that like less is more, and you just want to, do things. Again, the other thing that I find interesting is that when you're doing foundation stuff, like if you do arpeggios with like pickups and downbeats, so like ba ya da dee, ba, da, da, then you have line. And a lot of times when we think of like using good air, we forget that if we're actually like singing through a line and we're phrasing to a point, that's generally really good air. So if you do kind of your foundational things with some musical purpose to them, and also like when I'm doing articulation stuff, I'll do Coprash like in the style of Mozart as opposed to the style of Stravinsky, as opposed to the style of Shostakovich or whoever, or like Strauss or Brahms, like, because short means different things depending on what composer you're going for. And that way you're working on like your artistic usage of tongue rather than like, oh, does my tongue, is it good or does it suck? Like, it's sort of like,
Yeah.
it's channeled towards the particular musical usage, which is again something that I'd rather practice it that way than, yeah. So
Then just like, is it good or is it not good?
yes, exactly. It's like
so, so if you have a 10 a.m. rehearsal, so if it takes you to feel like you're loose a couple hours later, uh, what time do you have to get up for a 10 a.m. rehearsal?
well, I never feel good on rehearsals. I just try my best, but I try to just accept that it's not going to feel very good. Yeah, I think what it is now that I have kids, I do get up a little bit earlier for sure than I ever used to. But yeah, I guess I bike to work, which is nice so that I'm breathing a little bit, and that's a lovely thing. And yeah, I try to just do some stretching in the morning before I go to rehearsal, and then I try to just get there early enough so that I can have an easy, again, it's not a long warm up, but like an easy sort of honoring my body kind of warm up. And then also I'll try to warm up a little bit to like what the piece is. So if it's something that's big, eight horn or big heavy lifting, a lot of like loud high type of stuff, I'll definitely get there a little bit earlier, and I'll do a little bit more of the bigger belly breathing and try to get, my body working well. And if it's high and touchy, I'll tend to do a little bit more flexibility, fluidity exercises to try to get the response going, and more mouthpiece buzzing that's soft. And again, for responsiveness and ease and stuff. And I'll try to try to be a little more dancey with stuff. So
Yeah,
it's
you're trying to get yourself for the day of work, not just going through something
yeah,
like mindlessly, right? It's pretty easy
yeah.
to, especially during a pandemic. It's super easy to do.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
but talk about the Caruso a little bit more, because when I had Julie on, and I know you and Nathaniel were talking about how it's almost like you know what prescription you need for it, right? You're like, I know I need this much here, or I need this much here. Kind of talk about how you decide what you need to do with the Caruso.
Okay, yeah. So the thing that I love about the Caruso method the most is just how it attempts to help us like simplify our playing into just healthy production. So just breathe, just subdivide, just produce sound without thinking about it too much. I tend to get rather analytical and over complicated about things, so it's absolutely the antidote I need for myself, balancing my my own tendencies. So yeah, I basically, that is the one thing that I do every day. And I think especially like the ones that are the six notes and the lips mouthpiece horn are really great for the morning. I tend to use the noodles and snakes and spiders for like register breaks, and also clarity and things, and efficiency of just moving around between the registers. I actually really like the Gallet second horn etudes also for those topics. And then for kind of control of sound, and just control of register and ease, and kind of being healthy throughout the registers. And especially for me, the extremes, so the extreme low and the extreme high, the interval ones are really, really great for that, because again, for those, you can choose any interval you want. You can add crescendos and decrescendos. You can do loud, soft, louds. Like, it's really good for like just a real honest look at like, okay, how is my sound? How is my ease? How do I get from note to note? And do they even sound remotely the same? So basically, it's really good mind training for just focusing on listening, like feeling the rhythm, listening for the sound, and not letting yourself actually analyze too much. It just kind of naturally helps it to happen better.
Yeah.
So yeah, but basically, I mean, there's nothing magical about that particular book except for just that I think it seals in some really helpful habits for brass players. So one can do anything in the style of Caruso. For me, I talk about that a little bit. I'll be like, with students, I'll say like, okay, do that again, but we want to just focus on those Caruso foundational topics. Like, so do that in the style of Caruso, just thinking about the air, the line, I mean, the air and the time, and just kind of simplify your brain into these things. And that's going to stabilize what you're doing. So you can do that kind of approach with any basics book, and it has all the same rewards. It's basically just being mindful
Yeah.
and attempting to be healthy. So it's just all the things we all strive for anyway.
Yeah. That's
So,
just it's just a way to do it.
yeah.
Um, and so, and what else? Talk a little bit more about Julie, because when you were preparing for like your first job that you got out of school in New Jersey, I mean, I'm sure
Mhm.
you play a lot of audition material too. You know,
Yeah.
talk about those lessons with her, with that aspect of her teaching also.
Yeah, well, yeah, she's a really good teacher for auditions, and yeah, it's neat because I think a lot of the pedagogues who have such great audition success, um, they do have sort of a method of helping their students train their minds and their bodies kind of towards the goal of winning auditions, because it's such a short time frame, of course, that we have to like, just really like focus and be able to kind of nail everything all in that one little time period. So it's almost like the way she sort of helped me approach it was like you're playing, you're improving this way as a player. And then once you decide you want to take auditions or like do competitions or, kind of put yourself out there in any kind of way, once you need to start getting into your career, then you need to be able to have your performance success also be growing at the same time. So it's a process more than like something you can expect yourself to naturally be good at. Like it's a skill set, and it requires like practice, and it requires time, and it requires patience and research, and just kind of like dogged, like, okay, let's try that again, and this time we're going to do this. Okay, let's try it again. It's all the same kind of emotional things you have to do to get good on your instrument. You have to then put that towards the art of performing and the art of auditioning. And so people like Don Greene or Noah Kageyama, or all the people who wrote like The Soprano on Her Head, The Inner Game of Tennis, Zen in the Art of Archery, all of those amazing books. There's one called You Are a Badass, which is newer and really great. So there's a million of these awesome books out there that are just very empowering, but also give you a lot of really good tricks for how to control your mind and your emotions and kind of get yourself to this focal point. But it was very helpful the way she taught me excerpts, because she had us all basically have a mental game plan before each excerpt. And I still do this now. And I'll do it before solo pieces as well, between movements and things like that, just where you've got basically musical things going on in your head. So the orchestra, as it's playing, you sing it to yourself. And then you have some adjectives that are rolling around, like say Brahms 3, I would think about like the cellos at the beginning, and I would envision like the Zell Cleveland recording where they're just long bow and it's luscious and like emotional and poignant and expansive and dark, and I would think all of those things and sing it to myself. And then there's this Don Greene centering technique that I do beforehand that I can show you in a minute. I call it the hula hoop meditation. And then I would circle back to like where right before the solo that we have in the third movement that I'm talking about, you would in the slow movement rather, and you would then sing where the woodwinds happen and subdivide and kind of breathe in the style of it. So ba-dee-ding, bum, 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 ba-da-da-da-ding, ba-dee-ding, bum, ba-da-da-da-ding, ba-dee, bum, bum, ba-da-da-da, ba-ya-da. And then you would go. So you're basically like musical thoughts, and then mental control thoughts, and then like subdivision, breath, and musical like intertwined. And then you're creating like a moving train that is very easy to just hop on, and your brain is just going towards all the things you need. So it's kind of like building a list of ingredients and then boom. So it's really helpful to have some kind of mental plan. And for me, my mind is so busy, I have to do all those things. And also, like, she encouraged us to practice that plan every time you practice the excerpt. So it's not like a last minute thing you put on top like a cherry. It's like it's integrated so that when I play that, I'm in that world. Till Eulenspiegel, same thing. Heldneben, same thing. So you get yourself like really strongly in the musical and technical world of all the things you need to be able to just go boom. And it's really helpful because it's good to have more control over what your mind and your body's doing, especially when you have a short time period.
And then there's not the room for all the self-talk and self-doubt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. And then also, if you find that you're a big, like that takes care of the time right before you play. And then if you find that you yell at yourself while you're playing, it's better to have a cheerleader. And you can like just give yourself a whole lot of things on your paper, like a lot of markings, a lot of words, a lot of little like squiggles for color or presses or longs or, arrows and just everything. Or like even like go, 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 or like, yes, over the top, just kind of like if you give yourself sort of like a a coach that's sitting there and encouraging you through the whole excerpt about all the things you want to do with it, then yeah, you don't have room for anything unhelpful.
Yeah, that's good. It's better to have a John Wooden than a Bobby Knight yelling at you, and in those,
Yes.
and I say that as somebody that went to Indiana, but I don't care. So, well, so you worked with Greene a bit, right, when you were getting ready.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what was
And what was that like? So he's amazing. And I'm so impressed with all of these kind of mental coaches because they're so brilliant about just helping us with controlling and like kind of channeling what is going on in our minds into something that's useful and helpful. It's very much like it's appreciating that everything that seems like a negative, an unhelpful thing, it actually is the flip side of something that's very positive and probably partially why we're good at what we are anyway, you know? So the more like neurotic and insanely like self-critical we are, that is why we are hard workers. That is why we care. That is why we strive. Like it is all good things, you know, and it's just, it can be brought back to being a helpful thing if you can kind of accept it, love it, and channel it, right? So it's like, it's really helpful stuff. But yeah, he's got this really nice meditation that I love to do if you guys want to do it. You imagine that you're hula hooping. So you actually close your eyes and wiggle your hips as if you're literally hula hooping. And it's actually a ring of fire. And you hula hoop it until it gets smaller and smaller, becoming a belt of fire. And then it zaps inside your body and turns into a ball of flaming hot fire. It gets smaller and smaller until it's about the size of a tennis ball, and it attaches to your spine, 2 inches below your belly button, 2 inches inside. And it's a place that martial artists fight from. It's called chi. It's like where force and life and power and concentration and focus resides. We have a lot of power there. And then that fiery ball is going to burn its way up your spine, past your belly button, past your chest, your rib cage, past your throat. And you're going to bore a hole through the screen with your eyes as the fire comes out of your eyes. 1, 2, 3. And it just kind of channels all of your power and all of your focus into one spot. And then you just, boom, whatever your goals are, then you just name some goals and you just do it. And I do that before excerpts, but I also do it in the orchestra a lot. Like if you happen to watch Philly very much, you would see me wiggling, like in the little period where the assistant is playing or where the rests are, you would see me close my eyes, wiggle, and then look really aggressive and weird. Like my mom actually watched like my trial weeks in Philly, and she watched with little like, you know, opera classes, and she was like, man, you looked really mad, but I didn't hear you mess up like big. So I was wondering why you were mad, but it seemed like before every solo you were really angry. I was like, oh, that's my new focus thing. Isn't it cool? And she was like, oh, good. I'm glad it was okay. Like, I was a little worried. I was like, yeah, that was me trying to be strong and powerful.
I was going to ask, and this is not related on this topic, but what was on your trial week? Because was that a Carnegie concert? Am I right about
It
that?
was.
I
Yeah.
think I was there.
Um, you what?
I think I was there. What? Because I was a doctor at the
Whoa.
time. So what was
That's
that?
a really that's a funny coincidence. So yeah, I did a trial week with Check 4 on it and Rococo Variations, and that was just in Philly. And they're like, yeah, that's not enough to choose a principal horn off. I was like, yeah, no kidding. So then I did another one with Das Lied von der Erde and Beethoven 8, and that was the one that we took to Carnegie. And actually we just recorded for like Philly's streaming stuff now through the rest of our season. We're recording a whole bunch of stuff like in big chunks of like 2 weeks of, you know, whole bunch of pieces, and then they're streaming them over the course of weekends. And we just recorded a Das Lied, and it's a chamber version. And it was like the first time I've done it since that trial, and I was like having all these deja vus of how completely freaked out I was. I was like, I want this job so badly. So it's really fun to play it in a more relaxing environment, you know.
Yeah, a little less judgmental sphere, I guess, right?
Yeah, it was like, yeah, I'm like, this is just fun. Like, all right.
So you've been doing these things for years. So you had that kind of focus when you won the Saint, I mean the New Jersey job where you were for a couple of years, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Don Green had taught us in school. He had taught us a lot of these techniques, and had us read just a ton of books. And I think he's got 3 books that are really helpful. And there's a nice little test that you can take that kind of helps with, like it ascertains like what your 3 sort of mental kind of weaknesses are, and and then gives you like a plan of something you can do to help with it. And I remember one was like just courage, just summoning courage, and also believing in yourself and kind of owning some of your successes. That was one of them. And he had me at like doing like a courage log and 10 things that you love about yourself. And like, what's your one courageous thing for today going to be, like stuff like that. And it was really good for sort of, plumping up the areas about yourself as a human that you feel sort of unworthy and stuff. I mean, I think there's why so many of us like, go to therapists and, kind of read self-help things. And, it's like, we're just kind of always trying to improve ourselves as well as our playing. And I think the two are very integrated. And,
Yeah.
it's helpful to kind of look at yourself as a whole artistic being, and what's not helping me with my goals right now, whatever they may be.
That is a difficult thing, I think, as a young player, right? Because you have some success playing, and you think, well, I got lucky, or I didn't deserve that, or that's not really how I play. I'm fooling you, or something like that. There's so much
Yeah.
into it, you know. What?
Imposter syndrome, it's a real thing. And yeah, I didn't deserve that. They didn't mean that. They were just being nice. Like, it's really hard to actually own your successes and be proud of yourself and like not feel like a jerk. Like, being proud of yourself does not equal being a jerk. It actually just means like, wow, you worked hard towards something. Like, I am who I am today, and that was the best I can do. It's like, it's important to be able to like sit with the times that something went well and you're proud of it, as well as sitting with the times when you're mortified about something not going how you wanted it. It's like, sort of the piece of it being like, you're not awful, you're not amazing, you are you, and that's a beautiful thing. And that's exactly who you should be. No one else is like you, nobody else is you. Like, yeah, all that kind of self peace stuff.
I think people that don't work in the music field don't always understand that, right? Because they did their job right, and nobody gave them any hassle, and that's the end of it. And it wasn't really about their ego as much. Whereas with us, there's a lot more to that area, that you have to deal
Yeah.
with. It's and especially when you're young and you're confused anyway about everything else that happens in
Yeah.
life.
Well,
Yeah, yeah,
it's such a giving art form too. It's like when we're playing, we're really like we're giving of our souls, and we're hoping that everybody else likes it okay. It's a very vulnerable, it's like a beautifully loving art form, but it's also a vulnerable art form. So, we can't expect ourselves to somehow shut off that vulnerable feeling. It's not really
yeah.
possible if you're actually playing from a place of heart. It's just part of it.
Which book? What are the top 3 books you tell your students to get early on?
Oh, um, let's see. There's so many good ones. I really like um, I really like Don Green's third book, Performance Success. I really like the Zen and the Art of dot 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 motorcycle maintenance, or archery or whatever. I love those because they're kind of you know they're just all like that. I love the Tao Te Ching. That's all. It's a Chinese philosophy book from way long ago, and it has a lot of stuff about like the master strives but does now not allow them himself to attach. The moment that pride or fear or desire attaches, he releases it. So it's like the art of striving and giving your all and putting your all into your process of improving. But the minute that you attach to like, I want that, I need that, I don't want people to think, or fear or anything like that, then you just send all of your beautiful striving into the ether, into the world as like, this is what I've built here, and letting it go. And I find it very helpful to think about the fact that like ancient, Chinese people were writing about this, like not musicians, like just normal old people who are going about their lives trying to do something beautiful in their life and trying, it's like striving to have their life be worth something and meaningful and like, a, a, a reason for being, but also like that they were struggling with all those same things of doubt and fear and, feeling like, you're not good enough and everything like that. So it's like, nothing new, but a big, beautiful,
Yeah.
thing to try to untangle.
And for people watching, you should go to jenmontone.com and you'll see probably the most comprehensive website I've ever seen by a musician, because you really do deal with musical aspects of things. You deal with the mental aspect of things and injuries, which we'll unfortunately talk about in a little bit. I mean, all these things that we deal with it, and some of them I don't think we always want to talk about because it shows a vulnerability, and we don't want to look like that. We want to look like we can do anything, and that's yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that we can. But
Well, thank you for the shout out. Yeah, I love talking about stuff. And yeah, if anybody ever does like feel like they're fighting with performance anxiety or injuries or anything like that, I'm happy to chat anytime. Because yeah, it's like I love that the internet is such a beautiful big resource now. It's like it's just easier. It's easier to talk about these things. It's easier to find resources that can help if you feel like you're in a jam. So it's
is
good.
the name of that last book on your website?
Yes. Yeah, it's TAO and then TE and then Ching, CHING. There's a million editions of them too. So it's just, you can just pick one that's nice, but it
Cool.
has a lot of good life wisdom. Like Buddhist, Tao Buddhism is pretty deep and amazing. So it's really good to kind of meditate on some of these, kind of bigger truths and.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
We'll talk a little bit about some of your previous jobs, and then we'll get into some of the more some of the other things. So after you were in New Jersey, then you were associate in Dallas. Am I right about that?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And that was lovely.
yeah, because so then you were getting to play more first horn and kind of cutting your teeth on, especially a lot of concertos, I expect too.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. Yeah. And it's great because Greg Hustis was principal at the time, and he's just a lovely, lovely player, very musical, and yeah, and a really nice colleague also. So he was very nurturing, and so the whole section was. They were really supportive. I felt very young. I think I felt like I made a lot of mistakes. I felt kind of constantly a little embarrassed and sheepish, and that might just be being like a young musician. Like I think we just always feel like we're like I just put my foot in my mouth, or I just butchered that, or like oh God, they're gonna wish they didn't hire me. Like, just kind of like But I think it was nice to be in a really supportive environment. And I feel that way about St. Louis too, which is where I went after that. Because that was sort of the bigger principal second half repertoire. And so again, it's like you feel sort of like it takes a while to feel I think like to feel like you're settled in this career and you feel good about every time you pick up your horn in public, and and especially like how you deal with colleagues and just being like a respectful professional,
Yeah,
and kind of how to just be in the world. So yeah, but they were both really nice places to be for those years.
yeah, and then so
Great
and
orchestras.
that of course was Philly, is where you are right now in Philly. Along that trajectory, did you notice things in your playing start to change? Like, were you able to like take stock of it, or was it, what kind of things did you notice happening?
Yeah, well, I mean, also like a nice thing about getting older, we get to play with different orchestras, and it's so inspiring. You get to play with all these great professionals, most of whom are older than you and better than you, and you just learn so much. Like it's a pretty incredible thing, like getting to break into this field, and I feel like there's great artistry everywhere, and you can just like if you keep your ears open and really like I feel like especially as wind and brass players, you can just like so many of our lines are existing in other instruments as well, either at the same time and we're just the harmony of it, or like, they have a solo and then we have the solo, and you can like, it's like you can phrase it as a like, they said this and so you respond, or they did this so you'll do the same or whatever. It's like there's such a good chamber music component to it for our instruments, and it's so gratifying because there's kind of this constant lifelong learning that can happen, and this tag teaming, and it happens in freelancing as well, which is amazing. It's like kind of everywhere you go, it's a gratifying, like a place where, even like if a gig is terrible, you can find a couple people who are really, really good and listen to them. Like, it's like you can always sort of focus on things. So yeah, I feel like it was really great to play with these great orchestras. Like as young as I was, I think I was in a little bit of shock and a little bit terrified most of the time, but I felt really grateful to get to play in those calibers of orchestras, because that's
Yeah.
pretty special.
And you had Susan Slaughter playing principal trumpet still in St. Louis when you were there too, right?
Yes. Oh, an
Yeah.
amazing player. Yeah.
She's such a wonderful person. Can you talk about some things you learned from her, and maybe any helpful things that she said?
Yeah. Oh man. She just is like kind of like grace personified, and strength. I mean, I think of that a little bit. We were talking about that with the Julie interview that you did, just how amazing it is, these women of this generation just above ours, and just how they just kind of came in and just did their thing and just were amazing players, and just were like, no, women do this too. Here I am going to do it. And it's not like aggressive and powerful and like, like angry powerful. It's just kind of like strong and beautiful. And just like to be a professional, like in a leadership position as a woman, like that's a really good role model to have, somebody like Susan Slaughter or Julie or Gail Williams or any of these ladies. Like it's pretty remarkable to see sort of the grace and the strength of mental power, as well as all other kinds of power. It's a really special thing. So yeah, I feel very like it was really cool to get to see that, and have that as a colleague. And yeah, again, she was super supportive as well. But yeah, I just kind of admire, it's neat to it's neat to get to learn from, those around you. And it's easy to do if you keep your feelers out, kind of notice just how people are, in professional situations. Yeah,
Yeah.
she always handled herself with just such kind of good leadership, and also kind collegialness.
Well, and it comes out in her playing too, because anytime you would hear her play a solo, it was like
Right.
how she is. She's very beautiful.
Tasty, and yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Not trying to prove anything, but just this
Yeah.
is how it goes, right? So,
Just like badass, and yeah.
totally badass and
Yeah.
beautiful all at the same time. Um,
Hmm.
and so now that you've come to Philadelphia, do you notice as you've gone on this trajectory and as you've played over the years, did you feel yourself getting stronger? I mean, and your confidence growing? I mean, what were the things that were the building blocks in your mind? Like, did you think back on a certain performance and think, oh, I've done this before, and talk about maybe how
Yeah.
that developed.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, as we get more comfortable with the repertoire, especially with winds and brass, like, I mean, I'm sure it's the same for strings, but I feel like just knowing that you've played this piece before, you understand it a little bit better, you know your role, you know what is supposed to be, what you're supposed to be doing. It's like, are you leading a section here? Is it a solo line? Who had it before? What is, like generally, what do you do with it? And like, and especially also like if you do a lot of research beforehand, especially as a young player, I think it's much even more important to be doing like the score study and the playing along with the recording. Like I've found that it just makes it feel like you've done it a million times. Like if you play along with a recording a ton, and you learn, and you go with like a score and your part and a recording, and you write a whole bunch of stuff in, it's like you just kind of absorb it. It's like the book under your pillow thing, but real. But it's great, because then you just feel so much more confident. And yeah, I mean, it's not a substitute exactly for having done it in real life, but it almost is. But yeah, I mean, obviously, as we've done a piece before, you're just, you're more confident with it. But yeah, I think also it's helpful to kind of like have a lot of times I'll record my rehearsals and things like that and listen back, and it's helpful to kind of always be thinking like, oh well, that was good, but next time I'm going to do this. Or it's like have a little bit of like a post-mortem on something, on any kind of project. It's like or even just, if you crack on something and you don't know why, if you can go back and listen to it and be like, oh, well, of course I started to go sharp, so of course I overshot it, or I was behind the cellos there, so obviously my sense of timing, so I blah blah. It's like it's helpful to have a little bit of like an, oh, I understand why. And because then it's just a very easy fix. It's like, oh yeah, subdivide, or oh yeah, keep your pitch down, or like, or if I remember like, oh, I thought something like, oh my god, I'm gonna crack that, and then of course you do. It's like, okay, think about something else, something productive.
Yeah.
So basically, if you kind of if you're always just a little bit self-aware, and you can kind of look back and um like know what happened and have a plan for next time, then again, it's like nothing's a huge mystery. It's just you're constantly like just getting a little bit better every single time. And
Right.
that's a fun way to approach the field, because then it's not like, oh, here we go again, another Beethoven 7. It's like, oh, last time I remember I wasn't feeling all that comfortable about that, blah blah blah. And then you're like, I'm going to practice that down beforehand, and it's not going to feel like that this time. This time I'm going to be totally ready for that. So it's like
So
little goals.
I would ask about certain pieces too, because I mean, obviously, as long as you've played in big orchestras, the repertoire has gone through so many times. And obviously, there's pieces where you're like, oh, this piece again. I mean, it's very easy to get that right. What are some pieces you think people will be surprised that when they come up, no matter how often they come up, you still get really exhilarated by it, no matter how many times
Ooh,
you've done
yeah. Oh man, I got a lot of those. I mean, I'd say Mahler, Strauss, and Bruckner are always so hard for us and so gratifying for us. It's like, oh man, I could never be bored with any of those. There's just no way. But yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, it's I think whatever our favorite composers are, it's really nice. I've been actually fooling around with this during the pandemic. Like the things that I'm missing the most are the ones that I'm trying to like learn them again now. And it's really fun to like keep yourself in shape that way if you're not playing in ensembles. Like either like just pick a horn part to Mahler, 7. Like I've been just reading through like the first and fourth horn parts to different Mahler symphonies or Strauss tone poems or whatever. Like we did a layering project at Curtis recently where we did excerpts from like Alpine Symphony and Heldenleben, and I played seventh and eighth horn on the two different ones, and it was a blast. I'm like, I'm learning all these new things. I'm like totally having to woodshed my pedal low, which is not good, and is embarrassingly not good. And I'm sitting there like, I need to send this to my students so he can layer it. Like, oh my God, I need to make this like passable. Like otherwise he'll never, never ever listen to me ever again. So it's like it's good to sort of I've been trying to use the pieces that I adore, like my what's it called? Like the if you are on an island, which pieces would you
it.
like to take with you? Yeah. I've been trying to use those to kind of help me feel excited about playing and stuff. So a lot of playing along with recordings, a lot of just woodshedding them and trying to work them out and stuff. Again, because I think if you can get yourself excited to play anything right now, that's the key. It's like just
Yeah.
whatever, like we can improve on anything as long as you just get yourself to the horn and make yourself do something. Doesn't really matter what you're playing, I think, as long as it's feeding your heart.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and sort of along the same line as the previous question, like, do you have memories of like the first time you played like a Czech Five or a Heldenleben playing principal, and you were like, oh my God, I'm finally getting to do this, right? Do you
Mm,
are there some
yeah.
memories of pieces like that you have where you're like, oh, that was a big deal actually, you know?
Yeah, totally. The Czech Five is very special to me because Ted Thayer did it in the National Symphony, and I heard it, and then later that year we did it in Youth Symphony, and I got to play it, and that was just amazing. Because I sat there like with like he would give me marked parts of his part of for me to like watch as they were rehearsing. Like we got to sit down on the rehearsals and stuff, and it was just so cool to like watch how he did things, and then to get to do it myself. Like that's kind of an amazing thing. So yeah, if you know that you've got something coming up that like that you are scared about, like to convert it into like, oh, like find someone who you love how they do it, and really like it's really nice to learn things that way. I used to then do when I was taking auditions for principal, I would do this thing where I would put on like my Zoom recorder, and then I'd put on a recording of somebody, and I'd record them playing it, and then I'd go back and I'd play along with them, and I would record myself playing along with them, and then I turned them off and record myself playing it, and I would listen to like the three and kind of just compare like technical but also like musical like how compelling they were. And it was actually very interesting because I always was much better when I was playing along with somebody else who I love how they play something, and then I was able to carry it a little bit more, because then later I'd go back and I'd record myself playing it in the middle of an audition list, and I'm like, it never sounds the same, it never feels the same. How do I feel that, like, I love that? It's like, how do I get that in my, like one-off takes? And it was always interesting, like what a difference like our mindset makes on that. But anyway, to that point, like, yeah, it's cool it was cool to get to do that Tchaikovsky that way. And then the first time I did Mahler 5, I just remember feeling like so vulnerable and so like naked. It was like, oh my gosh, I thought about in the middle of that scherzo, you're like it felt a little bit like everybody's at a party, and they're drinking and they're dancing and they're having a great old time, and then you just stand up and you're like, hey everybody, it's not okay, and you just start like screaming at the top of your lungs. You're like, oh man, they must all think I'm crazy. And so like the first time I was playing it, I was like, I feel like I've lost my mind. Like I'm yelling all by myself as loud as I can about like everything's not okay, everything's upsetting, oh my god. And I was
When
like,
was
wow,
that?
this is
When did you do it?
vulnerable.
When did you do it first?
I think it was I remember it both. I think we did it once in St. Louis, and then I felt the same amount of vulnerable when we first did it in Philly. We did it with MTT, and actually he's so emotional that actually he's the one that kind of helped me get over that a little bit, because I looked at him and he was all like wild-eyed and like just in it in like that way that only MTT can be. And that was actually very helpful, because I was like, oh yeah, like if I'm crazy and off my rocker, like you're totally going there with me, man. You're like, you're not looking at me like I'm weird. You're like, yeah man, like let's tell him like it's not okay. So it was like deep dive, which is helpful.
Yeah, I have a question. I hope that you never think about this question after I ask it, but what does a first horn player get to enjoy the Adagietto in Mahler 5?
Oh, I feel such relief after that. Yes. Because yeah, for me, like the last movement is much less scary than the third movement for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, because the last movement's just very pretty, and like it's just a couple notes at the beginning. So it's like, okay. Yeah. So I actually, that one I really do enjoy.
What are your thoughts like as you know the Adagietto's coming up? How do you get yourself back from that place of relaxing, like after the big third movement, and then I've got to, you know, start the fifth?
Um,
Is that where you
yeah, I
sit
guess.
with yourself and do your exercises that way?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I feel like a lot of times with precision for like high things, something like that, you just need you need your timing and your production to be kind of aligned. So I'll try to start like subdividing and singing I'll sing. I'll start singing like the dancey part of everything and try to get myself in kind of a lilty mood and kind of an ooh, and kind of ooh face, and just like subdividing and dancing and just kind of in the style of the movement,
Okay.
so that I just feel like, oh, I just get to introduce this nice dancey pretty little theme. That's the first theme of it. And I'll think like woodwinds and whatever. But yeah, usually for me, if I'm starting to freak out, if I go to musical intention land and then supplement it with like, what are the things that are going to make this actually clean and, like clean and like accurate, then usually it's an okay thing.
I'm glad that wasn't as bad a question as I thought it was going to be.
I don't know. No, we're all like neurotic as, I mean, yeah, there's nothing like we're just as likely to mess it up whether anybody talks about how scary anything is or not. I think it's like,
Well, it's funny.
yeah.
We were at the beginning. I mentioned Pandolfi, and I remember him telling me once that somebody called him and asked him some really specific thing about his tongue, and then he started to think about it, and then he cursed him out because he said, "Are you trying to end my career?" So,
We're
and
all crazy,
oh yeah, we're all nuts. So, especially Jim Pandolfi. So,
especially
what
Hong Kong.
One thing that I noticed with when I was looking over your materials and things is the article you wrote about the TMJ issue you had.
Mm.
Yeah. So can you talk about that experience? It was a car accident, if I remember correctly, or something.
Yeah, well, and you were telling me about yours. I'm so sorry about that too. Yeah, basically, I was driving with my sister, and she was driving, and we got rear-ended. But I was talking to her, so I was facing this way, and I also had my feet up on the dashboard, which is really stupid. And please don't ever do that. Like my mom used to tell me over and over again, stop doing that, and I never listened. Anyway, so I knocked out my back really badly from the feet on the dashboard, and that turned into a whole nother injury later, like when I was here in Philly, a whole big old thing. And then but yeah, so at that time it was what happened was that the my jaw slid like this way. I don't even think I had any contact with, anything. I think it just was slide from the impact of the car. And so everything on this side was really stretched out and kind of torn, and everything on this side was like compressed like a rock. And just that symmetry issue made a lot of pain. Like there was sharp shooting pains in my temporalis muscle when I would play up high, and a lot of like deep aching when I would play low in the masseter. And I had like, there's all these lateral and medial pterygoids and all this. And so they were all just like twisted up and like, sort of off center. And yeah, I'm speaking your language here. But
Oh
anyway,
yeah,
so I learned a lot about the jaw, you know,
a
and I
lot of
got like
muscles
a
in
mouth
there.
guard. And yeah, I ended up with like a PT for years. I was off from the instrument for about 8 months. I kept trying to come back early because I'm an idiot and I do that. And then, of course, it was not working. And then I tried to, so anyway, I finally took off completely. And St. Louis was really nice about that. It was amazing. So basically did a bunch of like acupuncture and chiropractor and orofacial specialists. And yeah, just kind of over time it got better, Celebrex and osteopaths and, massage and all this. So basically just kind of try to throw the book at it.
Yeah.
And then I started to think, okay, I think I can come back. And I thought, I really don't want to mess this up, this comeback. And so I had heard about a performing artists clinic at the Cleveland Clinic. And at the time, there was a neurologist named Richard Lederman, who I think just recently retired, but I think the clinic is still there
Mhm.
functioning. If anybody needs like performing arts clinics are really good for basically having someone who's also worked with musicians, who's like a body work specialist who knows what we need to play. And I had never really put that together, how important that is, because like obviously like body work people are incredible, but they end up asking you a lot of questions about, well, what do you need to play the French horn? Like, how strong do you need your core to be? Or like, how, like, what do you, where do we need to get you to so you can do what you do? So of course they wouldn't know. So anyway, it was really helpful. He helped me design like a plan for working very slowly back. And it was like 5 minutes a day between middle C and middle G and piano for the first like month. And then it was like you can add uh, 1 note or 1 minute a day after that, but like not both. And so like it was brutal because I'd play for like 5 minutes and then I'd like cry for 15 or something because I'm like, this is terrible. But it was helpful because I ended up thinking like, well, okay, so if I've got my 5 minutes of fame a day, how am I going to make it useful? What are the most important things about playing the French horn? And what are the aspects? And so I started writing them down and making lists and making like those little bubble charts and like, okay, so what is it about tonguing and what is it about air and what is it about volume differences or, slurs or phrasing or whatever? Like, what are all the different components and how can I make them better? And I would sort of pick a topic and I would sort of explore it for those couple minutes. And it helped me kind of clean up some of the things that I think I hadn't ever been doing very well, get rid of some of the bad habits and also just kind of hone in on kind of aspects of playing. And it helps to be a little bit more like when you're breaking down pieces, solo pieces, etudes, excerpts, whatever, like it's helpful to kind of think of it in terms of topic as well as just the pieces. It's helpful. It's like, oh, this is loud and high. So I need to think about the air that I take in. I need to think about the openness and the sustain and the, kind of what I'm doing physically in that regard. And to kind of break it down in another physical way was good for my brain. And yeah, so I feel like I'm actually a much more, it helps me be more thoughtful about my practice and more efficient about it, and I waste less time. So injuries have a lot of really helpful benefits on the other side, because you feel like you've got resilience, you made it through something, you know how to help students a little bit better who are going through things like that. Like there are actually a lot of things that I'm very, very thankful for about that injury. And yeah, so it is what it is. But yeah, it really, really stank at the time though.
Oh,
I think you can agree. It's like kind of the worst thing ever, but yeah.
yeah, it's great to learn from it, but boy, you'd rather it not happen. You know,
Yeah, you really would. Yeah.
the Cleveland Clinic's pretty amazing. When I had stuff with my neck and jaw, I went there and I was seeing the head of neurology, and one day he asked me because they were giving me injections. I should immediately know what drug they were injecting because it's whatever they do for that to calm it down, but then it wears off, right? And so they
Hmm.
were actually doing the injections inside the mouth.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. But
Yeah.
what the thing was, the guy said, "Look, would you?" I know this is your interview, but it's a funny story. This is the guy says, "Would you come in and be a guinea pig, and we'll pay you, and you can get another dose of this medicine, but you got to do it in front of all these people." I said, "Sure, that's no problem."
Mm.
So the guy is wheels me out, and I'm laying on this table, and they have like the thing where they can hear where the muscle tension is, whatever, and he keeps missing. Now, it hurt, but I felt way worse for him because it was like he was missing a bunch of like second line G's in front of all of his colleagues at the Cleveland
Right.
Clinic. This is like, I
It's
said,
like,
"Oh,
nope, yeah.
I mean, this hurts, man, but you're the one that with the ego that's going to have to deal with this later."
Right. Like talk about performance anxiety. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I want to tell him, just take a couple of deep breaths and visualize exactly where you want to stick me with this needle this time.
Right. Yeah. You're like, dude, I got Enderall over there. I can totally get it for you.
Exactly.
Oh
Um,
my gosh.
But so let's talk a little bit about and when you were having that injury, how did you keep yourself mentally okay? Because that can be a little bit of an indefinite thing, right? I mean, it sounds to me
Yeah.
like you took the like, I will be back. This is exactly what's going to happen approach. How did you keep your mind busy when you weren't able to play?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just for a while I was kind of trying to just fill the time, and I was trying to do like I don't know. I was trying to do healthy things. I was trying to like exercise because I always, I always make the excuse that I don't have time to do that. And it's like, yeah, you do. But anyway, so I was trying to do that kind of stuff. I joined a couple sports teams and stuff to try to keep myself like busy. But yeah, it was interesting because I had trouble like listening to music. I had all these grand plans of like, I'm going to learn all these pieces and do all this. And then it just hurt my heart. Like I was very worried that it wouldn't come back, that like I wouldn't be able to play it without pain and without hurting it further and everything. And so, yeah, it took a really long time before I could kind of do anything musically,
Yeah,
which was really weird. Like I was sort of hit with this whole like, well, then, I mean, it's all these words that always are floating in the back of your mind, but then it's like right in your face. It's like, well, then who are you if you're not playing the French horn? Because really, it's kind of the thing that you've always done the best. It's kind of the only thing you've ever done. Like, what if that's gone? What do you got in the world for that after that? And I was like, oh, it's like, ouch. Like, oh man. And so it made me like sit and be like, okay, like I'm okay as a human. I will find something else that I can do and like that I can, like have as a life,
yeah,
like a life goal and something else to do something good in the world. So basically it just kind of like threw me for a big old loop. And I think it's hard to deal with that because yeah, I mean music is such an integral part of who we all are. Like if you choose this as a career, it's deep in there as as who you are. So anyway, so I kind of dealt with that for a while and was probably moany and whiny and not much fun to be around for a while. Yeah, and then I actually I think I didn't have this resource at the time, but this most recent injury that I had with my back, I found it really helpful. There's this really lovely website that Dave Bilger's wife, Angela Cordell Bilger, who is a beautiful horn player who plays with us all the time. And she has this website called Musicians Well. And this second injury that I had a couple years ago, I found it so therapeutic to go and read the stories that she has on there. She has interviews with a whole bunch of us that had injuries. And it's just really nice to hear kind of, it's helpful to read about what people have done. And it's also helpful to hear kind of how hard it was on everybody and how they all just kind of like got through it. Like it's really like just, the whole thing of putting one foot ahead of the other. I mean, it's that kind of getting through a trauma that we're all doing now with the pandemic, and also with a lot of the other life things that are going on right now. Like this is a traumatizing little time. And for me, it reminds me so much of both of my injuries, just like doubt and fury and upset and, fear. And, it's like worrying about what the field's going to be like and worrying about what our whole world's going to be like. There's a lot of correlations in my mind. And yeah, so just kind of like trying to breathe and be with every moment and just like trust. But yeah, I mean, I think it's the emotional roller coaster. It's a very similar roller coaster to what I remember that time feeling like.
Well, and I was just about to ask you about some of that in a minute, but Amy Zalota just said she feels like she should pay you for this therapy session. So
Amy, thanks for watching, my dear, dear friend.
we played in Jacksonville about 150 years ago together.
That's so cool.
Um, and then, yeah, but she's gone on to some bigger things, I would say. So,
I love that lady. She is so cool.
um, yeah, I was going to get into that. I'll get into that in just a minute because I think that's kind of an open-ended question, what you're going to. Talk a little bit about the way the orchestra's changed, back to some musical ideas, between going from Eschenbach to Yannick. What have you noticed about
Oh,
the way
yeah.
the orchestra is sound? Because I love hearing you guys with both. I mean, and especially the Ewald Quintet, by the way, that you guys did at one different
Oh,
point. That's a great
oh,
recording.
that's nice.
The Ewald 1 and 3 with the Philly Brass Quintet was phenomenal. The group sounds so good. Um,
Oh, that's really nice.
yeah. What changes did you notice as far as the demands of each conductor about what they were looking for from the orchestra and then the brass section?
Yeah. Oh man. Eschenbach was the maestro when I got hired here, and yeah, I mean they're so different. But what I love about both of those music directors is like just the genuineness. Like it's all from the heart. It's all just not. It's not fake. It's not show offy. It's not BS. It's just this is what I feel, and they want very much like for the musicians, both of them, to like take ownership and be like a real expressive partner. And that's so good for a band. I mean, oh my gosh, I love our orchestra in general just because of its like personality and its expressiveness and kind of like trying to be chamber musicians and trying to like kind of create a different world every night, like trying to do it differently every night and kind of have creativity in the moment and stuff like that. And I think both of them are really good about that. I think Yannick especially loves to bring out like today, yesterday we did it this way. Today, let's do it this way. Like he insists on us kind of being very aware of what he's doing so that we have more flexibility and a little bit more creativity on the spot, which is really helpful. But yeah, I felt like Eschenbach, what I loved was just the settling into the world and not letting go, and just not giving into any temptation. It's like if you're going to do slow and you're going to like get in there, you're just going to be in that and just like to sit with it. Like there's some thought in my mind about like what he experienced going through World War II and what that does to you. And as a musician, what you then think of music as being capable of. Like I imagine like he, apparently was like sitting under his, aunt's piano for like, like however long, like months, not able to speak, listening to her play. And then all of a sudden he was like able to like be in the world. It's like, oh my God, like, are you kidding me? Like, oh, it's like music means something to this guy. It's like, he's not like, this is not just fun and it's not just a career. This is like life for him, and that's really important. And I don't know, that's something that I admire about his musicality in general. And I'm like, you can't argue with what that means, and it kind of it makes it helps you sort of like have music be an actual real important thing to you, when you think of it like in those terms. But yeah, I feel like Philly is in a really, it's a beautiful thing to be in this orchestra right now with Yannick. He's uh, revitalized us in a really interesting way, like emotionally. I think like things are at a really happy point. And also just our management has been really, really lovely. Coming out of, we had all this bankruptcy stuff a number of years ago, and it was like kind of rough. And, it was emotionally very hard to feel so hopeful. And yeah, we kind of like, we've been trying to work together really well. And, it's like just everything's in a very positive and happy kind of place. And so I think we're feeling very lucky to be, like playing during this whole pandemic time and all this. But yeah, it's just musically, it's nice, like genuine musicality and also like collaborativeness. It's nice to work for a maestro who looks at you and when you have a solo and is like, hey, what do you want to say? Or like if you're looking like you don't know what to do, he's like, oh, let me suggest some ideas. Why don't you phrase here? Why don't you do this? So like he's interacting with you. And that's like really helpful. As a principal horn, you're like, thank you. I love you. And if you mess something up, he'll laugh. This is Yannick. It's like he's never a glare, never it's like he's a really good boss. So and yeah, kind of consummate musician guy. So yeah,
So
we're lucky. Yeah.
it's so unusual.
Yeah.
I remember since Amy Zlow was watching when I got the job in Jacksonville a long time ago, I called Bernie Edelstein, that used to be the first trumpet in Cleveland. And I'd taken some lessons with him. I told him, oh, they have this new conductor. Everybody really likes him. He just said, oh, give it time. You'll hate him too. but that's clearly not the case with Yannick. So that's
Well,
good.
it's kind of like a spouse or a sibling. Like, of course, it's like like with any colleague that you work with for longer the next number of years, you're going to start noticing things that you're like, really, dude? It's like, I think we all feel that about, everybody in life. But yeah, no,
But
we love him.
you're in a good position with him though, because I mean, he is one of these conductors that can come across on screen really well, right? And
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
probably ultimately important right now, with what we're dealing with pandemic. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe what are some of the creative ways you've seen the orchestra kind of do things during the pandemic to try to stay relevant? I've seen a lot of there's a lot of videos. I mean, I know Jeff was on here earlier and he rapped, which was incredible. And I'm sure you saw that, I
Nice.
guess, right?
No.
The one when he was trying to show people how to use the Roku.
Oh, that thing. Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, I thought you meant he rapped today. I was like, oh man.
No,
Oh,
you could have. I mean, it's possible, but
Jeff is a genius. Like his videos are just the funniest thing ever, and his cartoons and everything he does. Yeah. No, I mean it was cool because for the first, 5 months or whatever of the whole pandemic stuff, our orchestra our management just said like, okay, guys, what do you want to do? Like we're putting together this virtual Philadelphia Orchestra thing. We welcome your ideas. Just bring them. And basically so everybody kind of put together, like we did master classes and we did lectures and kind of interviews and things, and then we did a whole bunch of like layered chamber music and little recitals, like people who have spouses who play, they did stuff together, and and things like Jeff's videos, and it was like just it's a little bit of a creative hodgepodge. And I mean, all of us, like, we have all these friends on Facebook doing all these amazing, like, acapella, it's like sextets and, like all sorts of like really cool things. It's like the TikTok, like sea shanties, a student of mine today, like, was like, I'm going to do some of that on French horn. I was like, yes, you do that. It's like, I feel like creativity is exploding. Like we're all just bored off our gourd, not having anything like to do gig wise. And so we're like, what am I going to do with myself? But it's really cool to see all that. It's like very invigorating.
Yeah. And how inspiring is it to see Tony Prisk, like, for example, during a pandemic?
Exactly. Precisely. Yeah. He's like killing it. He's putting all these videos out. Tony, you rock.
Thanks, Jen. You rock. Holy cow. You're
Hey,
awesome.
man.
It's so good to hear your stories.
Oh.
I didn't realize quite the resource we had sitting right next to me on stage. I need to like pick your brain a lot more apparently.
Well, likewise, man.
Wow.
Why don't you guys both talk about that? Because you're both teaching a lot during the pandemic. And how do you deal with the students that you're dealing with and keeping them inspired, especially in a time where we all know that there could be less job prospects than there were before because of the economics of the situation? Hopefully everything will be fine, but I think we're all going to have to get more creative with the way that we sell our souls a little bit. How do you how do you keep your students interested and inspired and hopeful when you're dealing with them?
What do you think, man?
Go for it.
Me first? Okay. Well, I mean, I think like for me, it's hard to know. And so sitting with the uncertainty is very, very hard. For me, the one thing that I can control is what's coming out of my bell. And I know that my students can as well. So I guess they've been focusing very well on, and I find it super inspiring to work with like students right now because a lot of them, all of us were doing a lot of extra master classes and a lot of extra teaching and Zoom teaching. And they're all really hungry right now and they're like using their time and they're actually working really hard. So like it's cool to sort of see that in like kind of that response, that kind of like, I'm not giving up, I'm not giving into like this uncertainty, like no, I'm gonna do this because there's going to be auditions at the end of this and I need to get better. I actually have free time, I'm doing this. So I've been trying to help like the ones that don't feel that way. I've been trying to help them like just feel a little bit of, like, what do you love? What do you want to play for me? Like kind of like, what do you see as things that have been bugging you? What can we do to help with that? I've been trying to give them a little bit more kind of ownership over what they're doing so that they feel more inspired that way. But in general, I've been really floored by kind of the younger generation's like willingness to just like buckle down and get some work done. I mean, it's hard to know what the field is going to be like, but I think there'll be some darn good players coming, like when it comes back. So I think that's good. But yeah, I think in terms of trying to, like, I think in terms of motivation, like if you're feeling lack of motivation for a long period of time, I think that makes sense. So I think it's okay to like kind of wallow just a little bit and just be like, I can't do it right now. Because I do find like it usually feels like if you're going through a tough time and you let yourself just be, you gain a lot of wisdom with that. And so you end up just like a deeper, more compassionate person. And that's going to come out your bell. And eventually you're going to miss playing. And eventually you'll want to play something. And like, we can do chamber music, we can do layered things, we can do things outside like brass players can. So it's like if you're feeling any kind of desire to do something and you do it, like you'll start to feel, it's like the motivation will come back. But I sort of feel like if someone's really feeling down and not being able to get themselves to do it, there might be some emotional reason why they just need to process some of the stuff that's going on in the world. And like, that's okay. Like we have a minute, like with our injuries, like we found we were off for months and months and months at a time. And we came back and we're better players. Like we have a long life. Like we have, freaking, 70 years on this instrument. We can like, we can take a minute if we're not, if we can't do it right now, we'll do it tomorrow or, in 2 weeks when we get motivated. So I don't know. I'm trying to let people off the hook a little bit, including myself. I don't know. What do you think, Tony?
I agree. I think it's great. If you're not feeling like, if you're not motivated one day or the next, to like, yeah, let yourself have that downtime because this might be the only downtime you get. When I think about when I was a student, how much I practiced and how I just kind of went straight from being a student to playing, and the number of days off that I took over the last probably 25 years or so, maybe even 30 years, has been, I could probably count it on my hands and toes. it's just, I feel like this is now a time to like, well, if you want to take a day off, you want to like expand yourself in other ways, you want to do something just to clear your mind about stuff, you can do it. And I think that that's great for students now too. I think the one of the things that's great about this time now too is for the students that really want it, that really want that career in music, they can actually organize themselves. And they've been doing that. I feel like they've been really organized themselves about how they practice, how much they're listening, and they don't have to worry about like the pressure of playing pieces harder than they can play. That when they're like sitting in band rehearsals or orchestra rehearsals or wherever, and they're like trying to get through a part that maybe they're not quite ready to play. Now they can really build their way up and get their fundamentals happening, at a slower pace, and then obviously keep pushing themselves, but like, allow themselves to really hone some fundamentals, so you're not like thrown into the fire on pieces that, that may be a little bit out of your range or your ability, So I think that's one of the things I've been encouraging is to really just focus on the fundamentals and just enjoy playing, play with the recording online, play with, make these videos that people are making to keep themselves busy, and why not, have fun playing with layering with yourself and seeing how well you play in tune with yourself, see how well, the music, I think anything and everything, all the Instagram stuff is great. It's, like sometimes you watch, 15 seconds and you're like, okay, I've seen what I need to see, but like, it's great that people are putting stuff out there, well, why not? It's just, it's been a learning time for everybody, everybody's learning new skills now, with the recordings and everything. So I think it's an interesting time. I think that there's going to be a lot of growth out of it.
I was going to say, to tack on what you were saying, Tony, people have been playing. I mean, you've played a lot of things that have been excellent, and so many guys are like etude masters. I mean, Jim Wilt's got like 7,000 etudes he's recorded, and I think I think as a trumpet player, I think it's exposed some really good music that we don't really pay attention to. I mean, I find sometimes maybe I'd rather listen to a Charlie etude than I would hear the Haydn again. I mean, not that I don't want to hear the Haydn, but you know what I mean. It's like we have a lot more music than we thought. I'm always kind of jealous of horn players, but
yeah,
totally.
You get all the good stuff.
Aw. Yeah, well, it's funny because we're always like, I feel like these days, especially because there's so much that like has piano, it's like now we're stealing all the music from everybody else too. It's like it's a good time for, like you said, exploring new repertoire that like we haven't done before, or stealing from other instruments and stuff. It's like, yeah. I like what you said, Tony, about like the process, like the fundamentals, like because we're not worrying about like the outcome so much, there's not as many performances, so you're able to like hone in on like the process of actually playing. Like that's really cool.
Yeah, I like that's what you were talking about earlier, is that, with fundamentals, like being able to just lean on that practice, lean on that foundation that you've built when you're like nervous, when you just be like, well, look, I did my long tones. I've done my, like I can sustain that note soft. I do it every day, or I can play that arpeggio or whatever, because I include it in my all everyday practice. I feel like, and then, so you don't get nervous about the things that some other people get nervous about because they haven't played it in like 4 months,
Right.
So yeah, I really think that was a really good takeaway from what you said earlier, about fundamentals and nerves,
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's an interesting topic, but yeah, it's good to have this time. Like we all have some time now, which is actually very helpful.
I think it's like pushing the reset button, for our
totally.
careers. It's like, okay, now we got 20 years to go. 20 more years to go. Hey, there's Hugo.
We're gonna make it good. Hugo, hey man.
How's it going?
Where are you? Are you in Costa Rica?
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right.
I just left the comment, and then I got an invitation from Mark. So yeah, party.
It's so good to see you.
Great to see you too, Jen. Hey, Tony.
Hey, Hugo. It's great to see you.
Hey, tag on
Yeah,
tag on to this
I was.
question. I was about to
Yeah,
ask them a question. Tag on to it. So, Jen, you mentioned some of the creative projects that the musicians have done, and that your management can't. Now, okay, before I say this question, I know some managements are better than others, right? But your man in Philly, your management's really ask you guys, what do you want to do? What kind of things do you want to do? I mean, do you think after this is done, there could, I mean, in Europe, I think there's a little more collaboration. I mean, a lot of times the musicians run the thing like they do in Vienna. Do you see there being more of a role for the players at the table to make some of those decisions about how the orchestra is perceived in public because of what's going on now?
That's a cool thought. I hope so. I mean, I know one thing I'm very excited about. We've been doing all these streaming of concerts, and apparently it's been going okay in terms of audiences from other places, not Philly. So I know they've told us they're going to try to keep on going with some of our digital stage stuff, which is kind of, digital concert hall ish. So I'm really excited about, like, I think this is opening up a lot in terms of like what we can do digitally online as musicians, like where, how we can be more creative with the use of the internet, which of course, like other musical genres have been way more creative for a lot longer than our little neck of the woods has been. But yeah, this should help with that. I hope about the creative stuff too. But I mean, speaking of like cool projects, Ugo, you should talk about your warm-up class, like, and all of the Mets initiatives and everything you guys have been doing. It's like remarkable what your musicians are doing right now.
yeah. So, well, first of all, great answers. I was following up a little bit with what you guys were talking about. Um, Mainly stay motivated. These days, it's been definitely difficult. These past 2 weeks have been tough for me. I haven't played a note, to be honest. I'm trying to get back on, like in good shape, but I just can't. Sometimes I pick up the horn and I just say like whatever. Like I
Of course.
get the current status of things, and I just grab my bike or start looking at my fish right now. These guys, and they help me just to stay sane. So I mean, it definitely hits us in different ways. Right now, I'm going through one of those periods of I'm just not able to play. So I just leave it up there, try to take some time off, come back maybe in a couple of days, if not in a week. No hard feelings about it. But I wish I was, maintaining my level. But it's hard at times. And regarding the projects, like when the pandemic started, when the quarantine actually, when I came back to Costa Rica, a lot of the students reached out to me. Students from Costa Rica and other Latin American countries. They were like, so we saw you would do like some warm-up classes and before, and we're wondering if you're able to put them together again so we can do something, because we're really struggling with finding motivation. So I was like, sure, why not? I mean, it's going to be beneficial for me, for them. And I started getting in touch with friends. I actually asked Jen to lead one of those. So it's basically a warm-up. I bring a guest. The person shares their warm-up routine, whatever they want to talk about. Usually they're translating, but most of them speak English. And it became an opportunity to learn, like from our homes. We're all just doing basically nothing. I mean, I was doing nothing. So I was like, what can I do to contribute to them and for me? So it became we did it for like a month and a half. So we had 32 guests the first season. And then the second season was, we did like 20 or something like that. And I'm already working on the third one because a lot of them have been reaching out again, say, hey, we need something. And I go, hey guys, right now I'm not doing well mentally. So, but I'm listening. So I will help you guys. So I'm planning to come back to those in a couple of weeks. I also took a lot of time off. I mean, with my family, you know, we went to a vacation house that my grandfather has in the northern part of the country. It's in the middle of nowhere. So we didn't see other than cows and yeah, and horses. So I mean, that's definitely important, just to have a balance between, you know, what we do as musicians, you know, especially well, when we have to rehearse a lot, you know, play a lot of shows, and for example, like you guys, Tony and Mark and Jen, you guys teach. I mean, that adds up. You know, that's a lot of responsibility as well. Not only performing, but actually putting into practice what you tell the students to do. So I think that's a bigger responsibility. But yeah, I mean, that those projects help a lot. You know, and in the Met, we we actually got help from Sarah Willis to use her platform, Sarah's Music Space, to just broadcast the concerts. You know, like they broadcast the concerts. You can purchase tickets there and watch it if you can. I wish I was part of the second one they did. They did the Met and Berlin horns in one place, but I mean, I couldn't be there. I mean, and definitely putting together one more, only, I mean, one person would have been tough. So we decided to do it 4 and 4. But those projects, I mean, they inspire a lot of people. I mean, they inspired me, but right now I'm just like not in a. I just don't want to deal with my instrument at the moment. So I'm taking some time off. But yeah, long answer. Sorry.
Oh.
But
yeah, no, those concerts have been amazing. But yeah, I mean, I think you're right about balance, though. Like, you're right about like, we have to be in balance with our life, you know, and also like the personal part of our lives, you know, the people that are important to us in our lives, you know, it's, yeah. I feel like whenever I go through something big, like at the end of it, I'm a very different player as well as a very different person. And I think that's, you know, I think it's wise to take the moment. What were you going to say, Tony? Sorry.
I was just saying, I see a lot of people, you know, kind of taking a step back from their playing and doing other things. You know, their Instagram stories are filled with, you know, like I see Ryan Dark has been like riding up and down the West Coast, you know, like in California, and you know, like I'm sure he's playing too, but it's like, but you can tell that's like, look, it's not all music, it's not all trumpet, you know, it's about, you know, having a clear head and being able to get away.
Yeah.
You know, and some people need more time away from than others. You know, it's like there's nothing wrong with it. You know, I think it's actually pretty healthy to have that release away from music, away from the. Hey, here's Gail. That's great.
Hey. Oh,
Gail.
one of my favorite people.
Happy New Year.
Here.
Happy New Year,
You.
Happy coming Wednesday.
Yes, that's right.
let's hope it's a happy day.
Right.
Gail and Hugo, who do you think will be and Jen, who do you think would be the Sarah Willis of the Philadelphia Orchestra with their digital concert hall? Would it be Tony or Jeff Curnow?
Let Jeff have it.
Ladies.
Gail, how are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. We were just talking about how you're keeping students motivated or motivating yourself during the whole pandemic. How have you been doing with your students? And there you go.
French horn in the kitchen.
Yeah, because I'm on duty tonight for my husband. I'm playing new etudes that I haven't played in a while. Then I'm going to assign them to my students.
That's awesome.
The last time you played Book 6, Maxime Alphonse?
Right? Totally.
Yeah. Ouch.
That's beautiful.
Several months ago.
Yeah, I've been banging through Kling etudes. They're it's a little rough, but yeah, it's fun.
I was going through some Shane's etudes tonight.
Nice.
Yeah, so they're not the trumpet ones, but they're different.
Those are cool. Actually, I just got the Alphonse books from. I got one of the books because John Lewis does them, I guess, in his practicing, and to work all over the horn, because the range for your horn etudes is so much more than trumpet etudes. It's great. It goes low, it goes high. It's like all over the place. It's really challenging.
You say you got.
I steal everything from you guys too. So.
What was that, Hugo?
You got one of the Maximal Funds books?
Yeah, I don't remember which one it was.
Oh, cool.
Awesome. Yeah, but I check it. He plays like he played a first etude in a class this summer, and I was like, that is really cool. I got to start trying those.
Yeah.
So that's my project for the next 4 months. Cool. We're not working.
Yeah.
Gail, have you stayed playing the whole time, or did you take any time off?
Gail?
Me?
Gail? Yeah. Did you
Me?
take any time off, or did you keep playing the whole time?
I've been playing the whole time. It's too hard. Too hard to get back in shape.
Right.
I mean, am I playing the hours? No, because I'm not teaching. So when I'm teaching 5 hours, I'm playing 5 hours on and off. This fall, when I taught, I didn't play. It was the first time I hadn't played in lessons. And I just felt like it was one more layer that I shouldn't do. So when I was in person, I didn't play. I now have a mask with a hole, and I'm buying 20 of them for my students and Mr. Bowen. And so when we have our lessons in person, starting tomorrow, I hope we can kind of play a little bit, even if it's just intonation studies. Because that's what I don't know about you, Jen, but I find the students' intonation is wonky.
Oh yeah. Well, and my own. Yeah. I mean, that's the weirdest thing probably for all of us, is not being able to play with others. I mean, our intonation, of course it's going to be wonky. So yeah, I think it's a good point. Like, of just, even if it's just for, being able to hear a sound and match with it.
And play scales against, I don't know. It's very interesting, I've been practicing for so many years. That's kind of like what I do. That's kind of what if I didn't, that's kind of my attic. I'm not in my attic tonight, but I'm usually in my attic, like hiding, And I watch a little basketball, and then I pray, and then I watch a little baseball, and I play some more. Depends on the season. Now I'm watching the Bills. Whoa!
Yeah. That's awesome.
But I don't know about you guys, but it's part of your being. So you just keep learning some other stuff. Hey, Jen, I have a question for you. Do you know a trio that's by Czerny for violin, horn, piano?
No.
Oh, I will send you a website.
Yay! Thank you.
It sounds like Beethoven. Of course, Czerny studied with Beethoven.
You're kidding.
No, I sat there and listened to these little sound bits. I was like, oh my God, it sounds like Beethoven. The piano sounds just like Beethoven.
Oh, that's so fun. Nice. Thank you. Seriously, new pieces. So cool.
Write anything for trumpet?
You have to go. This website is, I know this man that has this website that he digs up all this music that's unusual, and he's a German Shepherd breeder. That's how I know him.
That's a great combination.
Tony, with our luck, it'll be like Salieri wrote like 12 etudes or something.
Yeah, and it'll all be like Brandenburg High or something.
It won't make any sense at all. It'll be terrible.
Oh, Jennifer, how have you been? How's your family?
Me? My guys are doing great. They're bouncing off the walls. They basically they find a piece of furniture and they run around it a million times, and then they start jumping on it and jumping from one piece of furniture to the next. So they're good. They're just, just enjoying being crazy little children. They could really stand to get outside though and actually speak to other humans besides themselves. I think they're going to be very odd at the end of all this, but maybe we all might resemble that. It's like socially awkward and just weird from too much time alone.
I picked up my grandson a couple weeks ago. I walked over to their house and we were walking back, and he said, "Grandma, would you please put your mask over your nose?"
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I was gonna say you have some little ones in your life these days.
Yeah, I had all three of them here today.
Oh, that's amazing.
I'm tired,
Yes.
but I have chicken soup in the freezer, so that's what they want. So it's all done. But yeah, it's fun because I get to go outside and play outside in the snow, and I love it. So I just wish it was snow more. I know,
Yeah.
Mark, it sounds weird, but
What is that? What is snow? What
it's the word that you're supposed to say when you get really busy, and it's got two words on letters at the end, and it's no, and it rhymes with snow.
no.
But now you
Yeah.
don't want to say no, you want to say yes.
Yeah. Yeah. The last time I saw snow was, like last winter. So
Well, Ugo, the other month, I think, or a couple weeks ago or whatever, we were hanging out with Ernie, and he said, "Oh yeah, Ugo and some friend they went to a and he named some volcano." And I was like, "They went to where?" And I was like, "Is that a restaurant?" And he's like, "No, no, a volcano." And I was like, "A real one?" I was like, "Oh yeah, he's in Costa Rica." Like, oh my God, but seriously, they have real volcanoes there? I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, I gotta go to Costa Rica.
yeah, we went to this volcano called Poas.
That's
It's,
it. Yeah.
the crater of that volcano is one of the biggest ones in the world. Yeah. And it's active, but it's like active but inactive at the same time. It's sleeping. So we can go on.
There's a little sense of danger when you're there. It's like it could blow up, but
If you start feeling like your surroundings like getting hotter and hotter, then you have to start running.
you start feeling the ground.
Yes, like
Run.
That's the difference between the United States and Costa Rica. You have natural potential disasters. We just have man-made ones.
Yeah.
That was a good one, Mark.
And how?
Hey, Mark,
Gail.
I haven't said anything to you, but I hope you're wearing something blue because I think it's really, really cool. Georgia is blue these days.
Oh, I played Georgia on My Mind the night before the debacle.
Sorry, I shouldn't bring it up, but I just had to.
No. You should bring it up because we did our part.
Yeah, you
So,
did.
yeah, we did our part, and we're very proud of it. Hey, so I
Hugo,
want to ask.
have you ever been to Yellowstone?
I've never been. That's actually one of my bucket list places. I definitely have to go. And
That is the largest volcano.
I didn't know. But
They didn't know that the whole thing is a cauldron. They didn't know that until they were doing orbits around the world and they could see it.
Wow. You
Yeah.
learn.
A geologist told my horn teacher. I had him go out and do a trip with this geologist, and the geologist said to Jack Covert, "Yeah, when it blows, just drive toward it because no one's going to survive."
Oh,
Smart.
wow.
You know that? It's new. Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Wow.
Big.
Well, that I didn't know. That's amazing.
That's why you want all those lakes to be changing. They're changing all the time, and you want those geysers to blow just to keep it, open.
Keep the pressure down or something.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
Gail did one of the warm-up classes. I invited her, and she, it was amazing. We're very excited, and thank you again, Gail.
Sure. It's fun.
All the
I'm
students.
sorry I missed that.
All the students were like, keep bringing more people, and I tell them, hey, other people are actually working, so we gotta so we've been doing them. The last time we did it was 2 weeks ago, so we're trying to get back into back on track, but those are fun.
Really nice you're doing all those, Ugo. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Mark, too.
Helping everybody get by.
When do you get back to school, Jennifer?
Oh, this week actually, tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah, it'll be nice to see everybody. We're still remote with Curtis. So,
Okay.
but yeah.
Gail, did your students do anything interesting like what we were talking about earlier during the pandemic? Were they making videos and things like that, or were they just kind of laying low?
Doing some videos. I had one sophomore making her own arrangements of some stuff. Really cool.
Cool.
But they were, Northwestern, except for the freshmen, they were all back this fall.
Mm.
So we had in person, and we had a horn choir, and we could pick stage for 20, 30 minutes, and then we go off to the lobby, and then we go outside, and we walk around the building, come back in and play. And then a couple cases of COVID came up, and everybody had to quarantine.
Oh man.
We did the same thing with brass ensemble, and we're hoping to do the same thing starting this week. Except that we're going to have a recital hour this year. We're going to have a horn class, but we're going to have so we're going to have two. So we have a room where we can have a piano, and they can be separate on stage, and we can all spread out. And it's for 45 minutes, and it's going to be a short recital, but it's going to be something.
Yeah.
Everybody that has to do it, the juniors, sophomores, those people will do. And some of the kids that didn't do them last year, they're going to be having to do them. Oh, isn't that too bad?
We're going to be in person at Peabody too, and it's hopefully I'll get down there. I'm going to start my lessons remotely, and then hopefully get down there later in the semester when hopefully I'll, because it's Johns Hopkins, we should be getting vaccines in the next month or so. I would hope.
Yeah, I'm crossing my fingers. I have a little inside possible with a fireman that I know really well here in Evanston, that he said there may be some extras tomorrow.
Ooh.
I don't know.
Good
But
luck.
I hope so. I need it for Larry. We have 5 or 6 caregivers coming into our house all the time.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
He's not eligible now?
he is, but he hasn't gotten it yet.
Oh, that's weird because I know that
He's
they're
not
like
in the facilities. He's home. See, that's
calling people. Oh, yeah.
I see.
our house is a facility.
Right.
So I'm hoping we should be able to get something. I think this week or next week. We can't make any appointments yet, but we've made a couple surveys out and stuff like that. But as a teacher, you should be able to. That's a essential worker, right?
Yeah, I hope so. I wasn't sure if that, because we got these surveys from Peabody saying, how much are you exposed to people and yada yada, but it wasn't specific to teachers. It was more like medical workers. So I decided I should probably just wait until.
Yeah, but Northwestern told us to make out the survey and say even if you lived in Chicago and you work in Evanston, you can put one in through Evanston and say that you're a teacher at Northwestern.
Oh, cool.
So look into the Peabody.
I will. Yeah.
I hope. I think that's what needs to get it. I said, I may not be nice, but I said, some of the older people, they're not getting it except for the people that are bringing it into them.
Right.
So get the essential workers vaccinated and get those teachers vaccinated so our kids can get back to school.
Yeah, agreed.
That'll be good.
Good.
Boy.
Well, I'm very glad you guys are all. Oh, go ahead, Gail. Were you gonna say something? I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, I was just gonna say I'm so thankful that all of you great players came in tonight, and that Jen gave these crazy thoughtful answers, and you guys stay on for just a minute. I'm just gonna sign off from the Facebook feed, but thank you guys for doing this. It just means so much, and I'm sure there's Jen. You said so many things, and I'm sure there's so many people that needed to hear so many of the important things that you
Bravo.
had to
Thank
say.
you.
Hi, Jen.
Thanks for coming, you guys. It's so
Yeah.
nice.
You're
So
awesome.
nice to see you.
And I also love that all of you, when we're talking about how your pandemic reactions are happening, are all very different but very important, because everybody that's going through this as a musician right now is in one of those places where you're playing all the time, or you're taking time off, or you've been up and down, or you're like wondering where this is going. And I just feel like it's important when people see that somebody, especially in your stature, is dealing with exactly the same emotions that they're dealing with it, and ways they're dealing with it. It's important for people to help out. And see the small community that we have. So thank you guys for being open to that. So, but well, anyway, well,
Thank
thanks.
you, Mark.
Thank you guys. Hang on one second, and thanks for everybody that watched tonight. And I look forward to seeing you sometime next week. Thank you.